442 watts. Hold that number for a second. Because a man who weighs just 142 pounds held it too, for 40 straight minutes, going up the side of a mountain. That is not a video sped up for the internet. That is real. My name is Sebastian, and this is the Injury Breakdown. Today we are analyzing the extreme physiology of the most dominant athlete on the planet. Because injury is really just physiology pushed to its breaking point, and today we are pushing it further than ever. This is a case about a body operating at the absolute edge of what a human is supposed to survive. And the victim this time is our own ability to believe what we are watching. Because when a human being climbs a mountain faster than the most famous cheaters in history, you are forced to ask a question that most people are too afraid to say out loud. Is this body real? Or is it chemistry? Stay with me. Because the answer is not the one the internet wants. And it is not the one his biggest fans want either. The truth is hiding somewhere in the blood. So let us start where every good investigation starts, with the evidence. And for 1 minute, forget about doping completely. Just look at what this body actually does. 442 watts for 40 minutes. What does that even mean? Well, 442 watts of electricity is enough to keep about 7 old light bulbs glowing at the same time. Now imagine producing all of that power with your legs while riding uphill. A normal person off the couch would struggle to hold 150 watts, and not for very long. A fit weekend cyclist, maybe 250. Tadej Pogačar is putting out the legs of 3 of those people, packed into one small body. And this is a 5-time Tour de France champion we are talking about. A rider many people already call the greatest of his generation. Now here is the engine behind it all. Scientists estimate his VO2 max at around 96. Think of VO2 max as the size of your body's engine. It tells you how much oxygen you can burn every single minute. Most elite professionals live in the 80s. The great Miguel Indurain was believed to be around 88. Greg LeMond once said his was 93. Pogacar's estimate is higher than almost every Tour de France winner ever measured. But raw engine size is not even the scary part. It is what he does with it. In a flat sprint, the group of riders can hit 44 miles an hour on a bicycle. That is the speed of a car on a main road, except the engine is a human heart. And when the road points uphill, he climbs almost 6,000 feet of height in a single hour. Picture the Empire State Building. Now climb it, 4 times over, in 60 minutes. It is beautiful. It is almost unbelievable. And that, right there, is the problem. Because we have seen numbers like these before. And the last man to climb this fast, the sport turned against him. Here is where the story turns dark. Cycling has a ghost. Its name is trust. And it died a long time ago. In 1998, a scandal called the Festina Affair tore the sport wide open. A team car was found stuffed full of performance-enhancing drugs. Then came Lance Armstrong. 7 Tour de France titles, and every single one of them erased. He was stripped of all of them for running the most sophisticated doping program the sport had ever seen. So an entire generation of fans learned one brutal lesson. The more beautiful the performance, the more likely it was a lie. And the secret weapon of that whole era had a name. EPO. Here is what EPO does. It is a hormone that tells your bone marrow to build more red blood cells. Now think of those red blood cells as tiny delivery trucks, each one carrying oxygen straight to your muscles. More trucks means more oxygen, and more oxygen means more power. Simple. Devastating. And for years, completely invisible. Now remember that climbing record that Pogačar just beat? For decades, the fastest anyone had ever climbed that mountain belonged to a rider named Marco Pantani, back in 1998. They called him the Pirate. And 1 year later, while he was leading the Giro d'Italia by more than 5 minutes, with just one mountain stage left to go, Pantani was thrown out of the race. Now listen very carefully, because this part matters. He did not fail a drug test. No banned substance was ever found that morning. He was removed because his hematocrit was too high. Hematocrit is simply the share of your blood that is made of red cells. Basically how crowded that oxygen highway has become. His reading was 52%, just 2 points above the legal limit. And back then, with no test for EPO yet invented, that number was the only red flag the officials had. So when modern riders fly past the ghost of the pirate, faster than the pirate himself ever went, you can understand why people get suspicious. It is not stupidity. It is memory. But here's the thing about memory. Memory is not evidence. So let us do something the internet almost never does. Let us honestly investigate the other side. Because if Pogačar were simply cheating, one single fact would break that entire theory apart. He is not alone. The whole world of professional cycling has gotten faster. Top-level coaches now treat 6 to 7 watts per kilogram as the normal standard, just to keep up. That is power divided by body weight. And it is a number that, a generation ago, only the cheaters could dream about. If this were just one man with a secret, the entire field would not be rising right along with him. Then there is the science itself. Those VO2 max estimates were not just a wild guess. First, the researchers tested their method on a rider whose real numbers were already known. Chris Froome. The model predicted that Froome's VO2 max would land somewhere between 82 and 89. His actual laboratory-measured number was around 85, right in the center. So the method works. And something else changed too. Something completely legal, and even more fascinating than any drug. Food. For decades, riders could only stomach a small trickle of carbohydrate every hour. That sugar is the fuel your muscles actually burn. Then sports science cracked the human gut wide open. Suddenly, athletes could refuel in the middle of a race at rates that were once thought impossible. Modern riders now eat while they ride like a furnace being fed coal by the shovel. Better training, better fuel, better equipment, a body built by nature, and then sharpened by data. Could all of that explain what we are seeing? Maybe. But there is one room in this investigation that we have not walked into yet. The room where they actually catch the cheaters. Here is what most fans simply do not understand. Catching a modern doper is almost never about one single dramatic drug test. It is about a paper trail. The main tool is called the biological passport, and it is not really a drug test at all. Think of it more like a credit history. But for your blood, instead of hunting for the drug itself, it just watches your blood values. Month after month, year after year. And if there is ever a sudden suspicious spike, a number that does not match your own history, the alarm goes off. It changed everything. But the cheaters adapted. Their new trick is called microdosing. Tiny amounts of a drug, timed so precisely that it clears the body before anyone can even test for it. Like shredding the receipt before the audit. So how do you catch a ghost that erases itself? You knock on the door when they least expect it. In 2026, during the Tour de France, anti-doping officers woke up Pogačar and his great rival Jonas Vingegaard at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was not out of cruelty. A microdose can be invisible again by breakfast. So the only way to close that window is to test at an hour nobody can plan for. And one voice really cut through all the noise. A rider from the Armstrong era. A man who openly admitted to doping himself. He said that today's stars are now being forced to atone for what his generation did. Read that again. The sins of the past, paid for by the athletes of the present. So where does all of this leave our case? Here is the uncomfortable truth I promised you at the start. Physiology can tell you whether a performance is physically possible, but it cannot tell you whether it was clean. Those are two completely different questions, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. So let me give you my honest verdict, as clearly as I possibly can. There is no positive test. There is no failed biological passport. There is no whistleblower. There is no evidence at all that Tadej Pogačar has ever doped. And some of the biggest legends of the sport, riders who lived through the very dirtiest years, like Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault, have looked at what he does and called it believable. So the most likely explanation is this: a freak of nature, a genetic engine that appears maybe once in a generation. Riding in the most advanced era of training and technology the sport has ever known. But I am not going to insult you by pretending the doubt is crazy. This is a sport that taught us, again and again, that our own eyes can lie. Even a former Tour de France champion, Bradley Wiggins, admitted the simple truth. Whoever wins the Tour de France today will always have to answer these same questions. That is the price of greatness in a sport full of scars. So here is what I want from you. Do not just tell me it is impossible. Argue the physiology with me. Because that is exactly what we do here. Put your verdict down in the comments. Is he a freak of nature? Or is he simply too good to be true? Now, my name is Sebastian, and this has been the Injury Breakdown, the channel where we take the human body to its absolute limit and figure out what happens. And that is exactly why you cannot leave yet, because a number is only impossible until you compare it to the right person. So here is the fight I really want to see. What happens if we take Eddie Merckx, peak cannibal, 1972, and we put him on Pogacar's 6.8 kilogram carbon machine? With modern nutrition, altitude camps, and a full sports science team behind him. And then, what happens if we do the exact reverse? What if we drop Pogacar back into 1972, on a steel Colnago, in a wool jersey, wearing a leather hairnet for a helmet, surviving on 30 grams of carbs an hour from a steak sandwich? I put both riders through the physiology, head-to-head, in my video called Pogacar versus Merckx. The physiology comparison nobody wants to make. Go watch it next. Keep your eyes on the evidence, and I will see you inside the next breakdown.